Each year as we read Parshat Pinchas, I find myself struck by the same pasuk. In the scene where Moshe turns to Hashem and requests a successor, Moshe asks Hashem, Perek Chav Zayin, pasuk Tet Zayin, Ivkod Hashem Elokei Haruchot l'chol basar, ish al haida. Hashem, who is the God of the Ruchot, of the winds, we'll say, of all basar, of all flesh, should find somebody to lead the nation. And we're immediately struck by the name that Moshe chooses to use while addressing Hashem. Hashem Elokei Haruchot l'chol basar. It's a pretty unfamiliar name for Hashem. It appears only one other time in Tanakh, in Parshat Korach, which we'll explore in a few minutes. And names are of God. Names are sort of always important, and they tell us something about the individual who is called. But in particular, the names of Hashem are significantly profound. And the Medrash in Shemot Rabbah tells us that Hashem is manifest, Hashem in the world through his different names. The different names of Hakadosh Baruch Hu refer to different midot, different traits or attributes of Hashem through which he is manifest in the world. And sort of reflexively, when we call out to Hashem, the names we use in our bakashot to Hashem reflect what we're asking of God, reflect the nature of the bakasha, really reflect the meaning behind it. So if Moshe sort of is to refer to Hashem by this new name in this particularly important context, asking for a successor, the name must be filled with significance. So I'd like to explore the name Elokei Haruchot l'chol basar on a number of levels. First, to look at the literal meaning of the word, and what does the shoresh ruach here mean in this context. Then to apply it to our context and think about how it informs our understanding of the bakasha. And then to zoom out a little bit further and think about Moshe's about the way in which this name plays into the arc of the narrative of Moshe Rabbeinu and his development as a leader of Bnei Yisrael. So let's begin with the linguistic piece. So the shoresh ruach, Elokei Haruchot, is one of those really beautiful and complex words in the Hebrew language. The Radak in his Sefer Shorashim offers like 7 or 8 different definitions of this shoresh used throughout Tanakh. But the one I want to focus on is what the Radak says, is Ruach Haratzon v'Chefetz, the spirit or the winds of Ratzon, of desire, and of Chefetz, of preference, seeming to refer to the individual and unique ways in which different individuals express themselves and interact in the world. And the Medrash expands upon this a little bit. Medrash Rabbah explains Moshe's request here in this context. Moshe, what are you asking of Hashem? That you, Hashem, Moshe says, you understand the inner workings of each of your creations, and therefore to choose a leader. Leadership is this complex balancing act between the different people and their different mitzvot, which requires a person to be emotionally intuitive, to understand those they are leading, and to be able to navigate between those different desires. So Moshe asks Hashem to find a leader who will replace him, who possesses this unique capacity to understand and to see the ritzonot of Bnei Adam, to see the individual unique preferences of different human beings. And while I think this explains a little bit of our local context, I believe if we look at the first instance of this name of Hashem, Hashem Elokei Haruchot, we'll understand a little bit more about Moshe's development as a leader and what's underlying the bakasha for a new leader, for a replacement in our Parshat. So the first time Moshe uses this name is in Parshat Korach, really in the heat of the moment, as Hashem is threatening to destroy all of Bnei Yisrael. It says, "Hibalu mitoch ha'edah," separate yourselves from the edah. To which Moshe and Aaron respond, they fall on their faces, "Vayamru Kel Elokei Haruchot l'chol basar, ha'ish echad echatav al kol edah titzov." So using this same name for Hashem, they ask Hashem, will you really punish the collective on behalf of the sins of the individual? Well, there are many ways to explain this pasuk. The one I want to suggest, given our understanding of this name, Elokei Haruchot, is that Moshe is really conveying in this bakasha in Parshat Korach, is expressing his frustration or the limitations of his knowledge of Am Yisrael. Moshe, the leader par excellence, has led Bnei Yisrael through the desert. He understands everything about them. He understands them inside and out, better than anyone else. And yet in this moment of Korach's insurrection, Moshe encounters the limits of his knowledge, the limits of his leadership, his inability to truly know what's in the heart of each member of Bnei Israel. Is it really just Korach who is rebelling, or is really the entire nation rising up, questioning his leadership? What's truly happening in the insurrection of Korach? There's a limit. There's this moment of reckoning. As Moshe steps back in the moment of humility, he says, Kel Elokei Haruchot, you Hashem, you understand the ritzonot of Bnei Israel. I don't fully understand them. I don't fully comprehend these people. These people who I thought I knew, I no longer am so sure that I know them. Perhaps it's a new generation or a new moment or a new period in Bnei Israel's travelings through the desert. And there's something here that Moshe has to reckon with, has to grapple with, has to confront as he notes and comes to the limits of his leadership and his ability to truly be the ro'eh, to be the shepherd of Bnei Israel. And this reckoning only continues to develop over the next couple of Parshiot. And Parshat Chukot, of course, as Moshe is punished down the Hamantimpi, and he's told he's no longer going to enter into Eretz Yisrael. And then finally in Parshat Pinchas, as there's a replacement or changing of the guard, of the Kuhuna, of the Kohen Gadol. And finally, Moshe comes to a point of acceptance. We watch Moshe go through this journey where he's no longer in a state of questioning and crisis, perhaps in a state of acceptance. As he turns to Hashem and he asks for a successor, he recognizes that he won't be the one leading Bnei Israel in the future. I think there it's particularly telling that Moshe uses this very same name for Hashem, Kel Elokei Haruchot l'chol basar. Tells us something very profound about Moshe's process of digesting, reckoning, confronting with, and finally accepting the limitations of his leadership. And truly realizing in a moment of humility, right, how little he knows or what his limitations are as a leader, recognizing that Bnei Israel need someone who understands the ruach of this next generation, the ruach of this next phase as Bnei Israel are entering into Eretz Yisrael. And he turns to Hashem and he asks for a successor, Elokei Haruchot, the successor that will fully understand the different ritzonot, the different desires, and the different needs of this generation of Bnei Israel. Wishing you all Shabbat Shalom.